a member of my African politics class, and he's supposed to be here. So we will note that absence. It's a great pleasure to introduce Bob Press, and I guess I met Bob a century ago, because when I look at his first book, which is The New Africa: Dispatches from a Changing Continent, is published in 1999, which means that, and Bob told me that he wrote this book primarily. Hello, Michael. There he is. That he wrote this book primarily in the library here at Stetson University, and that's where most of us got to know Bob, who moved here to spend some time with his then ailing mother. He and his wife were correspondents for the Christian Science Monitor. She a photographer, he a reporter. This book is an amazing book because it's a collaboration between the two of them. Perhaps his others are as well, where you get her world-class photographs combined with his world-class writing. Bob is one of those rare political scientists who knows how to write, and writes well. He is, in addition to the author of this book, is the author of two additional books, one called Peaceful Resistance, Advancing Human Rights and Democratic Freedom, published in 2006, and then he's about ready to come out with one this year called Ripples of Hope: How Ordinary People Resist Repression Without Violence. Bob is one of those social scientists who is less interested in the methodology and the beautiful models and mathematical constructions as he is with understanding real people, real cultures, real world societies, and their historical evolution. In that, he is, in my mind, of a tradition of good practitioners of comparative politics. Bob came to me at some point as he was writing this book, and he said, you know, I think, Bill, I think I'm interested in comparative politics. And so thus began a correspondence, both in person and sometimes through email, that brought him to and ultimately through the University of Florida, where he got his PhD, and then went on to become a professor, or an associate professor now, at the University of Southern Mississippi, where he is, in addition to being an associate professor, is president of the Faculty Senate and a member of the NAACP there on their board, a runner, and a member of the choral, a chorus, a singer in a choir. Bob is a multifaceted human being. We are happy to have him back. We welcome him back for this presentation on Africa, borders, and multiculturalism. Bob Press, please, up to the front. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. You know, the advantage of a long introduction is that you don't have to talk so long. So I appreciate that. You know? So I want to start out by saying that there's some people in this room that really are my mentors and also longtime friends. I'll start with Dr. Bailey, and Dr. Bailey actually knew my grandfather in this town, and he recommended seeing Dr. Bailey, so I went to see Dr. Bailey early on. And he took me seriously as a journalist, he takes me seriously as a political scientist, and as a friend, so I just wanted to thank him for making the effort to come by. Ray Colombe, sitting up in the front there, was a good friend of my parents, and his daughter Laurie, and I'm very pleased to have them here. And Barbara and Don Page. Don Page raised money for this university, so some of the things you see around here are because he was working on that. Steve Tonjes, a personal friend. And the guy I'm really afraid of here is John Boyle, because he was a champion runner at one point, and we go out and ran. We ran the other day together. And I know that at some point he's going to say, okay, let's really run. He's going to take off, and I'm going to get lost, you know. But he's here to critique me from the back seat. And I think the backbenchers, I don't know why they're here exactly way back here, because they thought they were safe back there, but I generally tend to talk from the back instead of the front. So, this is Garcia, my new friend from Venezuela. I think we got one other from Venezuela. here, and one from France, and one from where?
Brazil.
Brazil. We had this argument whether Venezuela or Colombia. Where's the Colombian? Yeah, which was better. And I know. Do you know which one is better?
Ecuador.
You want to go visit?
Ecuador is better.
Ecuador.
Yeah.
We're going to have a problem here. You guys work it out, okay? But a while back, my wife said, let's go, we take turns on where we go on vacation. So I said, you know, I mean, where do you want to go? She said, Medellin, Colombia. And I said, the drug capital of the world, you got to be kidding. And she said, you're behind the times. It's turned into a beautiful tourist place. We went down there, you haven't even been there yet. You just go to Bogota. But it's beautiful. If you ever want to go any place, you should go. I have been to Ecuador, and I enjoyed it very much. We went way up into the jungle. We went to Guayaquil and Bogota, and it was a great place. It was a good visit. So, happy to meet you. I thought there were 6 people coming. As Gene said, there will be about 6 people, so I'm really delighted. I know that some of you actually are studying Africa, others are studying political science. A couple freshmen back here are not quite sure what they're doing. Maybe if somebody joins the CIA, I told her she could learn how to waterboard and things like that. But there's a whole range of interests here. So Gene gave me just a very simple topic, but if you translate it, it's borders versus globalization, which means learn everything about globalization, which is the world, and then learn everything about borders in Africa, and then just combine it and make a nice talk about it. Actually, Gene, that was not it. Dr. Husky, I'm sorry. That was not an easy assignment. The more I thought about it, the tougher it got. And so I've been working on this thing, and I actually, you know, what do you call true confession? I actually only finished it about 4 hours ago because I wasn't happy with what I had. And so what I've got here, I think, and I hope that you who have had different experiences in life and are not currently a student will kind of give me a little slack here, because I'm a professor and I think kind of like a student when I think of it. There's a lot of visuals in it, and some of it probably won't make any sense from a straight lecture, but it makes sense to me. And what I'm going to do is not answer the question. The question, in case you didn't see it with this massive publicity, is do borders still make sense? And in the question I posed, and Dr. Husky went along with that, was, in a shrinking world, is Africa a winner or loser? You can put it that in a different way. In the period of globalization, is Africa actually winning something? Is it a winner or is it a loser? I will not answer that question, because otherwise, you know, I've noticed with my own students, if I ask a question and then I say, what do you think? And they don't say anything, they think I'm going to answer it. I just sit down on the desk and wait for them. And eventually we get some discussion going. So I'm hoping we have me talking and doing some stuff here, but also some discussion, okay? And I don't expect you to know much about Africa at all. You just started, I think, your studies in Africa, right?
Yeah, this semester 5 of us are studying. So
Okay.
we're only each one of us has a specific case, so it's not that we know about every single country in Africa.
No, I don't either. Don't worry,
Yeah.
there's 52 of them, and I wouldn't want you to ask me how to spell. I took my students on one time in a map, though, and I gave them a blank map,
Oh, Dr. Allen did that.
but then at first, well, maybe I didn't do it right. I gave them a map with all the names on it, and I said, you got 10 minutes. So they quickly formed into teams, and they're smart. They subdivided Africa, and I said, I'm going to beat both the teams. And guess what? I came in third. They got 2 perfect scores, and I misspelled one. Boy, did they catch that fast. And one of the I called it a tiny little error. They called it an error. So anyway, don't feel bad. So this is, some of it is specific, some of it's general. And you can think beyond Africa a little bit. The globalization is basically just connections between countries, okay? It's been going on for centuries. We'll get to that in a minute. I mean, Africa's been globalized for decades and centuries, okay? But it's just connections. You're all part of globalization.
Isn't China doing a lot of work there, getting a lot of things from Africa?
Did I what?
Isn't China
Yeah.
exporting Africa? quite
Yeah, Oh my gosh, you just stole my best thing. China is in Africa so big that one of my slides, one of my PowerPoint things just shows a China flag. Hang on. You're right. You're absolutely right. So we'll get to that. So let's start. Okay. Yeah, well, I should have started with the stereotypes. Let me go back one thing. Just let's get the stereotypes on the table, and I'll be totally honest. When you think of Africa, what do you think of?
Impoverished.
Huh?
Impoverished.
Impoverished. Poverty.
Impoverished.
Come on. Backbencher. Ebola. Yeah, you know, I went to Kenya in December, and some of my friends said, "Oh my God, Ebola!" So I got the map. I said, "It's 5,000 miles away." You're right. That's what I think of. Excellent. She doesn't know. That's the main thing about Africa. People don't know it. They don't know much about it. Join the crowd.
How about that dark continent cliche we used years ago in academia, Africa, the dark continent?
The dark continent. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
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 High school textbooks, I think.
They still have it? Oh my gosh. What else? Laura, you actually have family in Africa. When you think of Africa before you got involved with the family in Africa, what did you think of Africa?
Blank slate. I can do nothing.
Nothing. See? Just like you. Everybody in the room has that kind of thing. Mold the map. Well, yeah, right.
Mostly, thank you, Western Europeans, for screwing it up.
Wow.
It was very nice of you to put in all the resources and then abandon the continent entirely once it's no longer considered morally correct by your populace.
Okay, I want all the Europeans in the room to stand up and say, "What did you just say?" You know? Are you suggesting that Western civilization and Europe has done something not so positive in Africa?
Well, I mean, dividing the entire country into a bunch of squares without regard for religion, ethnicity, and tribal groups is not a recipe for a stable and peaceful continent.
He sounds like he comes from a country that's got it all together. What is the name of that? Ukraine, right.
No, this country is all together. My parents are from Ukraine.
Gotcha, okay. All right. Let's go so that I can counter that, and I agree with everything you've said as being an image of Africa. I'm going to suggest that Africa is safe for the most part, healthy for the most part. Even the Ebola is really, it's gone down, way down. We're getting close to where maybe we can get those 42 days without any virus at all. Close. Still out there. Healthy, well-educated.
We don't have that idea of them. They're very well educated. It seems like so many people are in small towns.
Yeah.
They don't have many opportunities.
You're right, and if you go into a small town, what you'll find is the president has said, education is free. And that's a popular thing. And then what happens is, all the mothers who couldn't afford it before, and their mothers always pay the bills for education, they send their kids down there, and the last ones to get there stand out in the hallway. Or out in the yard. Because the classes get bigger and bigger. And half of them aren't in the classroom sometimes. So, but nevertheless, education is making progress. Modernizing. If you go down to some of the cities in Africa, you're going to go through and you're going to say, this is getting boring. It's just like where I came from. You know, downtown Nairobi. You know, the billboards are huge. Mozambique, the billboards are huge. Dr. Nyland just got back from Fulbright in Mozambique, and he was telling me about the size of the billboard. It sounds like a lot of countries right now. Advertising very expensive modern things. It's beautiful. How many people have actually been to Africa?
Teensy bit.
Oh, look at the hands going up.
Just a teensy bit in the north end.
Yeah, you came to visit us. Okay, and it's also very friendly. Now that is something I would like to emphasize. When we got to Sierra Leone, and we've lived in Morocco, Tanzania, Kenya for about 8 years. Where else? I guess that's about it. Sierra Leone, I think was probably the friendliest country I've ever been to. It's hard to explain this, but if you've come from a country which deals with familia, you know the sense of familia, where family in the Latin sense, they embrace people. They become like Tio Bob or Tia Betty, my wife. You know, it's nice. It's true, isn't it? She just got a Peruvian mother, in quotes. Yeah? Well, so that means I have Peruvian sisters, nieces, nephews, the whole thing. So it's very friendly. Okay, now let's start. Photos, just a few photos, just a few images from my wife. She did a beautiful book on Africa. It's sold out. She's working on one on Mississippi now.
I think this light ought to be off, or would that help?
You've seen that, yeah.
This light up here,
We can turn it over.
help or what?
These don't need explanation.
Okay, like that.
Yeah, that helps.
That better?
Yeah, I think you see that. Thank you.
Backbenchers are already checking their text fan anyway, so. No, actually, they're not. That's, I think, in Sudan. Kids have the greatest sense of humor. You go into a refugee camp, you're doing radio, I used to do radio and newspaper, and you're trying to tell a story about people dying and starving, and in the background you hear all these kids laughing. They're running around playing games in a refugee camp. Kids are just amazing. This is Sierra Leone. All they're doing is checking their messages.
Yeah.
A human rights leader in Sierra Leone, where I taught at the university. I walked in expecting a class of 30. I found 160 students there. They said, "Don't put your briefcase down on that table; it will collapse." No lights, no books, but a hunger for education, a hunger for it. Sierra Leone, beautiful, very typical transportation. So I'm not trying to say it's all modern, it isn't, but it's there. Just as a proportional thing, some of the maps are not good. Africa's a lot longer than that actually, but it gives you a little idea. You actually have so much space in Africa. Here's China. Here's the United States, Spain, France, Germany, Italy, Eastern Europe, India. Another way of looking at it. Not sure why somebody put China upside down. But you get the enormity, okay? We're going to talk about borders. We're going to talk about 52 borders.
Are there 52 countries?
Yes. So, in a shrinking world, a global world, are Africans winners or losers? Be thinking about this. Come around and ask you what you think. I won't embarrass you, but you give me your best shot. And are borders still relevant? Dr. Husky's thinking, well, he's finally getting to the topic, Okay, pre-colonial borders. These are not borders, but they kind of give you an idea of the groupings of some of the ethnic groups. In other words, long before the colonial borders were formed, you had boundaries around kingdoms, around ethnic groups. They were there. They're nothing like what actually ended up on the maps, Then came along the Western group that Vollemar was talking about, okay? There was actually a table, and I want you to think for a minute. I made a suggestion, and then somebody said, who's going to supply the rulers? My suggestion was that we would hand out a ruler to everybody on a piece of paper, on an African map, and you would draw borders. Just, there's not a test, but just you draw, and you have to use your ruler for part, okay? Because some of the African borders are straight lines. They sat around a table like this one here, the leaders in Africa, the leaders in Europe, and they drew lines. And they had these arguments. Okay, look, you have been over there. You don't really believe, you shouldn't be there. And they would dispute, and they'd say, okay, you take this part, I take this part. And the cleverest guy at the whole thing was King Leopold. He wasn't even there. You know what the word proxy means, right? Somebody goes and takes your place. So he had people there from Belgium, But he had in mind, give me the big stuff in the center. That's what I really want. Well, Germany and France both wanted the same thing. So what's the deal? Germany hates France so much, and France hates Germany so much, they said, okay, neither one will have it, we'll give it to this guy, the Belgian delegate, who obviously sent a text message right away to his King Leopold. And he answered on Twitter saying, this is mine. So he got the Belgian Congo. What did he do with it? He started massive amputation of hands and feet for those who didn't obey his rule.
And this, what country is it?
Yeah,
Take
Belgian
it.
Congo.
I know, who
It's
took
been-
it?
Pardon?
What country took it over?
What country took it over?
Yeah.
Belgium.
Belgium.
Belgium. Okay, here's what I just mentioned earlier.